and my husband and I recently bought a house. Our conditions were lifted last week, and so I'm just really excited, so I'm going to start packing stuff up. And the first place I'm going to start is my bookshelf. The reason I'm starting here is I really need to do a big unhaul, and that'll declutter a lot of our house because I have most of these shelves double stacked. I have a handful of books in my bedroom. I have books piled up on my desk from editing. It's just time to clean house. There have been a lot of books I've loved recently that I've read and owned I've bought and read in the last year, but there are a lot of books that I own that I don't love, and so I'm wanting to get rid of them, as well as get rid of any books where I'm like, I'm actually never gonna read this. As you can see, very messy, and then to the side here I have another stack on off screen down there. Well, I don't know how to do this. Down there, I have a bunch more books that I need to go through, so this video is going to be just kind of like fast forwarding of me going through my stuff. I'll flash the books I like, and then every time I collect 5 books that I'm going to unhaul, I will pause the fast forward and go through them with you. So I'll see you in the next pause. So I know I said I was only going to pause with books I'm going to get rid of. Instead, I'm going to show you my guilty pleasure shelf. The very top shelf of my bookshelf that you guys don't really get to see is filled with what I consider my trashy romances. And when I say trashy, I don't even mean like they're terrible books. They're just not like Pride and Prejudice level literature, but they're all fun. I have a thing for historical romance, and I like that mixed with strong female characters, and I get a lot of that. So I have the books in my hand, another branch goes to the top shelf, and I just wanted to show you guys because you don't get to see it very often because I don't do bookshelf tours. So I've got my first stack of books I'm going to unhaul. The first of which is The Accidental Scientist. I got this for Christmas from my sister-in-law a handful of years ago, and I read it, and it was super interesting. I'm just never going to read it again. The basis of this book is it's going over all of the inventions that have changed our lives drastically, and kind of talked about what parts of them have been accidental and kind of what led to everything in the long run. The next one is Orphan 8. This was a really hard read. I loved it, but it was so disturbing. I'm gonna have a really hard time picking it up again. You follow a small Jewish girl who is placed in a Hebrew infant home, so an orphanage, after the death of her parents. And part of her journey is dealing with all these experimental medical treatments that the doctor in residence was doing to the children in this home. And just based on that, I can imagine that many of you will understand how triggering this book would be. And it was very well written, but as a result of that, I was very, very disturbed by what was going on, and I don't know if I could read this again because of that. Next is Girl Stop Apologizing. I have Girl Wash Your Face, and I read that both in the physical and audiobook, and it was alright, but I know Rachel Hollis is pretty controversial recently, and I didn't enjoy the first book enough to really pick up this. Based on kind of what I'm working through with my psychologist, I feel like this book would be kind of damaging to me if I tried to pick it up and compare my goals and road to hers, so I'm just getting rid of it. The next two are YA reads. They're YA contemporary that I loved growing up, and down the road I might get them for my own daughter. The characters are a bit pedant and like pompous, like very precocious, I guess. That was a lot of P words. and all of my words are all of those things. But they're not things I'm going to read anytime soon. I'm just going to get rid of them and hope that they hit another teenager the way they hit me. And then the final one, I have to try to find the sleeve for this. It is Our Kind of Cruelty by Unhaul. You follow a man's perspective of a toxic relationship, and it is just a wild ride, and it makes you hate men so much. About this book, I love the perspective of the narrator, who's the main character, and it's just because it shows how different people perceive different actions, and as a result it really like shows you how some people think something's normal and it's really not, and hindsight can kind of show you that for some people. Anyways, that's the first chunk of books I'm going to unhaul off of my first 2 shelves. I'll keep you posted. Okie dokie. So I have another pack here. That shelf was full of more books than I expected, and books that I don't really want to keep. The first of which is Space Opera by Catherine M. Valenta. I went into this with such high expectations, and I don't think it's a terrible book, but I love Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and just like the quirky, fun, crazy tones. And this was written by somebody who wanted to do that, but in the end I just felt like the story didn't have quite the same charm. I think a lot of people are really gonna love this because it was a lot of fun and it was really crazy and over the top. It just involved has-been rock stars, and they, with the exception of Daisy Jones and the Six, those kinds of books typically don't appeal to me. Then we have Isabel. This is by Guy Gabriel Kay. I had been working my way through the Vienna Tapestry by him as well. However, there was a really horrible rape scene in that, and other things I've heard about this author is that he tends to be graphic and write women not the most awesome way, and as a result I'm not going to continue reading his work. Not everybody's going to agree, but this is just my personal preference. I didn't enjoy the Vienna Tapestry enough to pick this up just because of what I've heard instead of despite of what I've heard. Next one I'm getting rid of is The Star's My Destination. I made a messy rant video for this and then never released it because it was so incoherent. But I've talked about this a few times. It was one of the worst books I read. I can't remember if it was 2019 or 2020. I honestly thought I'd already gotten rid of it, so it's going now. If you enjoy The Count of Monte Cristo, you probably would get some enjoyment out of it. However, I don't enjoy revenge stories done in the style of The Count of Monte Cristo. This is the companion book to Girl Stop Apologizing. This is the one I listened to as an audiobook and read a little bit physically, and I didn't love it. Again, heard like mixed things about her, and honestly I think taking some of the advice here would be counterproductive to my own mental health. Not that it's going to be that way for everybody, just me personally. This is a nonfiction. I read How to Talk to Strangers by Malcolm Gladwell, but given how it was written and how pop science-y it came off as, I'm losing interest. I've had this on my bookshelf since I was in university, which is 8 years ago now, and I'm not feeling it anymore, and I have just not picked it up in that time period, and nothing about it is making me want it to pick up anymore. And then finally, Spoonbenders. Some of you may have remembered, I believe I did do a review for this one, I think. If not, ignore this. If I did, I'll include a link below. And it was when I was still getting blind date with a book. I was really excited about it. I actually really enjoyed Daryl Gregory. I read a couple of their books by him. And again, this is another one where it's not bad, but in order to make space on my shelves for books that I love, I'm gonna get rid of ones that I only mostly enjoy but I'm never gonna read again. Alrighty, this one took a little bit longer, but we'll go through it, hopefully quicker than the last few. So Updraft and Cloudbound are two books in a series about a post-apocalyptic society who is living basically in these ever-growing bone extensions. They've never been really by the surface of the planet they live on, and they get to and from places by a series of bridges, and when they're old enough, gliders, as you can see on the first one here. Basically they cover the overthrow of a government, and what I like what they did with the second book is that they do kind of deal with the fallout from that government overthrow. However, I feel like I'm just the wrong audience for these. They were a little young for what I enjoy reading now. This is The Ghost Seer by Friedrich Schiller. I read this in a blog a while ago when I was visiting my in-laws, and this book is the most surefire way to put me to sleep. I thought it would be kind of an interesting, kind of not like almost novella, and it was a philosophical essay using metaphor. Which is not what I signed up for. Next one is Work Like Any Other. I did do a book of the month review, or a virtual book club review for this one, so I'll include the link for that below if you guys are interested. And I enjoyed it. I found it really interesting. There was a lot of really interesting imagery that showed both this man's life and his relationship and how the farm kind of mirrors everything. It reads to me like a book I would have read in high school English and then had to analyze. Some of it was really interesting, some of it was not. And as a result, I'm going to donate it because I don't see myself reading it again. Next is The Peculiar Miracles of Antoinette Martin. I had never heard anything about this one. I forgot I owned it. But reading it again, I'm not sure how I would enjoy it, and I'm really hesitant to pick it up. The daughter of one of the characters is said to be severely autistic, but she's a powerful gift, and I'm hesitant to pick it up because I have never really heard anything about it, and I don't know. This one, I'm saying I'm going to donate, but I'm really torn. I'll decide when I actually take my books in if I'm actually going to donate it. We'll see. Next one is Half-Blood Blues. I've had this for 3 years and have never picked it up, although I think it'd be really interesting based on what's written in there. I'm hesitant a little bit because it does deal with musicians and musician celebrities. I don't see myself picking it up anytime soon. And then The Glass Hotel is the final one. I read Station 11, I loved Station 11, and I read The Glass Hotel with the Station 11 expectations in mind, and it was like taking a sip out of a glass of tepid water. You're thirsty and it'll do ya, but it's not quite hitting the spot. And that's what I've got to say about this. This story is so hard to describe. Like, it takes place over multiple perspectives, over multiple points in time. But basically follow a girl and her half-sibling and like the weird paths their lives take, and like everybody's really messed up. And I really don't want to say too much more because it'll like take away the discovery of the story, which is the part that kept me engaged. But yeah, not gonna read it again. Gonna donate it to see for someone who wants to pick it up. Alrighty, we're down a bit into the shelves that you guys can't really see. So I might adjust this to see if I remember, but I have another stack of books that I'm going to get rid of. I know a lot of you will be shocked that I'm getting rid of Little Women. However, this is not the copy that I thought I was getting. I thought I was getting the copy that was Little Women, and the one that's usually bound up with it, which is like The Good Wives, I think. Anyways, I thought I was getting the copy that was the first and second book, and I did not. So I'm getting rid of this because I wanted both copies, and this is just the first story. And this is Sleep by Richie. It's about a guy who like spirals out of control due to a crazy brain illness, and it was a wild ride, and I hate hated this man in every minute of the story, and I'm okay with the fact that I read it, but I'm never picking it up again. Next is 1,000 Pieces of You. I ordered this right when I started BookTube, and honestly, the cover really draws me in. However, the writing is very young end of YA. I would have loved this when I was about 14, 15. It's just, I'm the wrong audience for it. Next is All the Ever Afters. I believe I read this on a vlog. If not, I reviewed it on Goodreads if you guys are interested in checking it out there. It's the untold story of Cinderella's stepmother, and I loved the perspective it gave the stepmother, but I didn't love most of the story. Part of the reason I mean, I'm not crazy about the Cinderella story to begin with, but I like the sense of whimsy around the fairy tale, and I like with retellings if there's still a sense of whimsy even if the tone's darker, and this had no sense of whimsy. So I was a little sad. Next is After You by Jojo Moyes. This is the second book in the series, I think, and I didn't know that. And I don't really have a desire to read the first one now that I've looked into it, so I am giving it away. Fahrenheit 451. This is like a classic sci-fi, and honestly, I love this cover. I've really been fighting with myself about getting rid of it because I love the cover. It's so simplistic, it's beautiful, but I'm never going to read it again. Next is Dragon and Thief. This is like a middle grade sci-fi. I would have loved reading this when I was about 10 years old. It was really cool, and the main character is a lot of fun. The main characters are a lot of fun, but I'm kind of not the audience for it. So finally, The Portable Veblen. This is another book from Blind Date with a Book. This was, although I don't see myself reading it again, this was the weirdest, quirkiest take on a rom-com that I've ever seen. It was absolutely bizarre. The main character was bizarre, the love interest was bizarre, the relationship was kind of weird, but not unhealthy, just strange, and I don't see myself picking it up again, but it was a wild ride for somebody looking for something that's just completely different. Alright, so I have my other stuff. My shelves are now clean, so it'll now be onto my extraneous piles. When I'm done, I will show you guys a quick flash of what I'm getting rid of, what I'm keeping. What I'm keeping is split into two piles of stuff I intend to read, and as a result, I'm going to be moving with myself stuff I loved, that because I loved it, I'm going to be moving it. But on to the stack of books. First is Confessions of an Opium Eater. This, as with the Ghost Seer, was part of a bunch of classics I ordered all at once. I just have no desire to read it now. Could I tell you why? No, I just look at it and I'm like, no, not for me. Next is 7 Viking Romances. This was a ton of really interesting mythos. This is another one like the Curious Miracles book of whatever, where I'm not entirely sure yet if I'm going to for sure get rid of it, but it was really interesting. It just happened to be very, very dry, and the storytelling is done in a way I'm not familiar with, so it was a little bit harder to get through. Next is The Fall of Lisa Bellow. I read this late last year, and while the concept was interesting, like, it kind of looks at the fallout of this girl going missing after being taken hostage at like a sub store, and then you're following the girl who was also there but didn't get taken, and it was a very bizarre read that I kind of felt like didn't really go anywhere. Next is A Modest Proposal and Other Writings by Jonathan Swift. I'm actually getting rid of this because I want to read it, but I, for whatever reason, managed to get 2 copies of it when I ordered it. I looked at it and like my order said 2 copies of this, so I don't know how I screwed it up, but I did. Next is The Wonderful Wizard of Oz by Frank L. Baum, sorry. And this was a classic I always wanted to read, having only ever seen the movie. And while I enjoyed it, if I'm gonna read a Wizard of Oz book, I'm gonna read Wicked, which is the better retelling of that world. Next, I'm gonna get rid of Carrying Albert Home. I did this recently for a virtual book club read, and more than anything, I finished it, get it off my shelf, because while it feels like Big Fish, it didn't read half as charming, and the little crazy adventures ended up feeling way more like obstacles than fun stories. Whew. Next is Thin Air by Michelle Pfeiffer. This I really, really enjoyed, but I'm getting rid of it, or I may get rid of it. This is another one, I'm not sure. I may get rid of it because it's not a book I'm really going to read again. It was super interesting, and I really, really enjoyed it, and I definitely would try other stuff by Michelle Pfeiffer, but it's just people dying on a mountain, and a reliving of the trip, and a ghost story all in one. And then finally we have An Anonymous Girl. I have been becoming a little bit jaded with domestic thrillers, however, the Greer Hendricks and Sarah Pekkanen do a really good job of making intelligent, manipulative women who are both protagonists and antagonists. And while I really appreciate that, I don't think that I can say I loved this book enough to keep. I'll definitely keep picking up stuff by these authors, but I might just do it through my library from now on. It looks like I'm jumping right back into books I'm unhauling, but actually what happened is I cleared the rest of the books in my stacks without having hit record. So there's no time lapse of it. So this is the last batch of books. Everything else has been dealt with. I'm keeping them, and we'll just get on with it. First is Smoke by Dan Valenta. I like dark academia, but there's something about this world that I didn't love. Next is The Island by Aldous Huxley. I did not enjoy Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, and I did not enjoy this. His writing is not for me. Next is Dr. Zhivago by Boris Pasternak, and let me tell you, as someone who lives in Canada, his descriptions of winter are unreal. The rest of the story was pretty terrible. It's about a man who loves two women and is divided by war, but really it's kind of like a man who just wants to do whatever he wants. And his reasoning is that because he loves both of these women, he can do whatever he wants. Next is Not My Boy. I got this from Book Drop and did a vlog on this before. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't amazing. Thankfully, me getting preemptively angry about the child in the story having done this did not come true, which is a bit of a spoiler, but if you've read this book, you understand the vibes. Next is The People We Hate at the Wedding. This is a dysfunctional family that borders on garbage fire. Nobody's really awesome, and I would have loved at least one character to kind of save it for me. But were all very selfish about this stepsister's wedding, and I finished it, but I was not a fan. And then finally, Take It Back by Kia Abdullah. Hot mess of a main character, no growth, complete lack of professionalism. I really had a hard time getting engaged in the story because of that. The concepts here were really, really interesting, and I think for the most part, this story in the broad strokes is really well written. I just had a very, very hard time taking the main character seriously or empathizing or connecting with her in any way. Sorry about that motion, but here is my final tally. These are all the books I'm getting rid of. Ignore my wedding dress in the corner there. That is 3 stacks of 10 books. I'm getting rid of 30 bucks here. And now on to what I care about, what I'm keeping. So there's a book for my job. Ignore that. But then I have these two piles here. This pile is books that I want to read, and as a result, I'm not getting rid of them. Part of this pile is books for my husband, which are related to spirituality and his Christianity, or books from the oatmeal and books about living with big dicks, because that's the dichotomy of my husband's personality. Spiritual, but also a fan of horny jokes, which I love. It just looks weird on the bookshelf. Then here are all the books that I've read and have enjoyed enough to keep. I know there's probably a few books around that I haven't got to, but I will decide those off camera. I don't really want to search for it. And with that, I will see you guys later. Peace.